So now I'm so excited to introduce Diane Greene. Diane Greene is the latest member of Google's board of directors. She's also a board member for Intuit and MIT. Diane is probably most well known for founding VMware. VMware went on to define the visualization industry. Diane was the CEO of VMware from 1998 to 2008. She took the company to $2 billion in revenue, and she took the company public. When I heard that I got to be on the same panel as Diane Greene, I was flabbergasted and so excited. And despite how intimidating her resume sounds, Diane Greene is actually quite approachable. I heard her speak last year at a Google event, and I went up and introduced myself afterwards, and she was very friendly and nice. So if you get the opportunity afterwards, I would encourage you to shake her hand. Diane is also a national champion sailor. And with that, Diane.
Thank you for that introduction. She went further than I suggested she go, but how did I manage to do these things? What I thought I would do is take you on a whirlwind tour of my life and try and highlight where I thought I learned valuable things. And I grew up sailing, racing sailboats. And when you race a boat, you have to build a team, and you have to get your team all aligned on a single goal, which is to win the race. And then you need your strategy to win the race. You have to understand what the wind's doing, understand what the currents are doing, and pay attention to your competitors. And if your competitors surprise you or you get a wind shift, you have to immediately react and handle that and continue winning the race. And the last thing is the engineering around sailing. You have to prepare your boat. It has to be ready to go fast, and you have to tune it while on the race course to keep going fast. And I think that's what led me to train. I trained as a mechanical engineer and then a naval architect. I came out to the Bay Area, to San Francisco for my first job. And the first thing I was given to do was analyze some mooring for an offshore oil platform that was used for firefighting. And there was a big 4chan program that looked like it was the way to model this, and so that's when I learned how to program. And I found it, it was just this incredibly powerful tool, software. You could do anything with it. Got pretty excited about it. Was not very excited about sitting inside behind a desk. I really came to the Bay Area for the windsurfing. So I quit that job and I moved to Hawaii, where I think I had perhaps one of my favorite periods of my life. I lived sort of in a commune where we were exploring. Windsurfing was sort of an early microcosm of the tech industry. I mean, we were just inventing all kinds of things. And new sails, high aspect sails, new shapes of boards, new materials, and all we did was build and test this equipment every day. It was really tremendous, and from there I went and ran engineering for Windsurfing International. That was the company that had the patent on the windsurfer, which also taught me how abused patents can be, because they tried to control a very rapidly expanding industry with their patents. I left that. Well, all this time I continued to study software. I went back up to the Bay Area and enrolled in a graduate program in computer science at UC Berkeley. Berkeley was a pretty happening place at that point. The grad students had a lab full of brand new Sun workstations that were based on this Unix, relatively new open operating system. Richard Stallman, who wrote the GPL license, was hanging out there. I got to see the first graphical user interface, and it was just very exciting, and I knew it's what I wanted to keep doing. I did still yearn for adventure. I've always really loved adventure. So I took a brief interlude and went to use my computer skills to be the computer expert on a marine archaeology expedition in Saipan, where we excavated a Spanish galleon and found gold. And then I came back to the Bay Area and went to work at a succession of companies in the tech industry. The first one was Sybase, where I really got hit over the head with the value of having engineers across companies work together. I made friends with an engineer at Sun. It turned out he was a windsurfer, and we spent a few months windsurfing and writing software, and were able to get sort of an order of magnitude performance increase in the Sybase system running on Sun. And I really used that when I built VMware. All three companies were quite an education in how important it is to embrace change and always go forward, invest in the future. Sybase didn't want to rework their system to support symmetric multiprocessing, and that's sort of why Oracle eclipsed them. I went to work at Tandem that had the world's best database management system, but it ran on proprietary hardware and proprietary operating system, and it was too hard to see the business model for moving to commodity open systems, and they sort of sailed into oblivion, getting bought by Compaq and then by HP. And then I went to work for SGI, which was a pretty aggressive tech company at that point in time, and worked on interactive television, which was a really exciting project. But again, as you know, the internet was happening, and it was starting at SGI, but instead the founder of SGI, Jim Clark, left and founded Netscape, and a number of us left and started companies, and that's when I finally just decided to stick with startups. And so I did 2 successive smaller startups. The first one, they both had great visions. I would say they maybe executed too early. Nice financial outcomes. The first one was streaming video and over the internet, low bandwidth, because there wasn't much bandwidth. And the second was internet ad serving, interestingly enough. At that point, I took a little time off and decided to found VMware, which was based on some work my husband was doing at Stanford around virtualization. And you know, there's a few things I can kind of relate to what we did at VMware to what I had already learned. For instance, Sun Microsystems, you know, introduced these workstations. People loved these workstations and then brought their servers into the companies. And at VMware, we used the same strategy. We had a workstation software. People loved our workstation software. And then when we came out with the server product, we're pretty quick to adopt it. We did amazing. Our engineers worked with the hardware vendors. They worked with the chip vendors. They worked with the storage vendors. And then we worked with all of those vendors to take it to market. And I'm just a huge believer in collaboration in the industry. And it was really effective for VMware, but it was always hard to convince other companies to trust us and partner with us. But I think we always won jointly together. And then the last thing was just sort of how to adapt, how to embrace change. You know, my job changed considerably from 0 to, you know, the sort of 6,000, 7,000 people the company was when I left. And it's just sort of recognizing, okay, this isn't working, and constantly sectioning out parts of my job that I just didn't have time for anymore, and hiring someone to do those things. VMware was just a totally fun adventure, building it with all those people and seeing the impact that it had. And what I would say is it's not so important how there's just sort of an infinite number of ways to do things. But when you see something that you're very interested in, that you think it can have some real impact, the thing that's important is to codify that vision, see that vision, enjoy the adventure of building that vision. And if you do enjoy it, it makes it fairly easy to be fearless about it.